Welcome back to the Chasing Happiness podcast, an honest podcast about finding happiness, what it means, and the process of getting there. My name is Crystal, and today I am actually super excited because I'm going to have a conversation with Jackie, and I found Jackie online. I actually think originally on TikTok, and then probably followed you on all the other social media networks because I was like, oh my God, not only have you started this amazing thing, which given that I'm a woman and the age that I am is super important to me, but you are Canadian. This whole thing, like as a Canadian, starting a business is just a different thing. And anyway, I'm not going to get sidetracked and get into all the reasons why I love you already, even though I don't know you. Let's get chatting. But Jackie, before we start chatting, introduce yourself for people who maybe have not found you on TikTok and don't know about your amazing company yet.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Crystal. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here. My name's Jackie. I am the co-founder of a business called Ovry, Ovry, and that is a Canadian brand of reproductive care essentials. So right now, our current product offering is pregnancy test strips, ovulation test strips, and most recently, our at-home male fertility test. And really what we're aiming to do is to simplify ovaries. When I was growing up, I have this blood clotting disorder that's fairly common, but it prevented me from being able to take most forms of hormonal birth control. So I had all these anxious trips to the pharmacy to buy a pregnancy test. And I was, buying them for $20, $25 just to pee on them and get my period a few days later. So it really frustrated me when I learned later in life how big the markups were on these products. So that's really where the sort of foundation for starting Ovry is creating, a more accessible price point for these products, but also the education piece and letting people know, like, if you're going to the dollar store, that is okay. Like, they are medical devices that are regulated by Health Canada. And so, the test that is accessible to you is the test that you should use, and making sure that more women knew that. I'm kind of getting sidetracked, but basically that was kind of how the business started. And we're so excited. I have co-founder Christina, who is an old friend of mine. We sort of reconnected later in life. Like, so we met as kids, and then later in life, she has a marketing background, and I was doing more operational stuff, and I decided to quit my job, and I needed somebody for the marketing. So it's been a really awesome journey, and yeah, we're very grateful to be where we are.
This is amazing. And I love this because you bring up, when we were younger, and I can honestly say, as someone who is just in my 40s recently, nobody really talked to me about women's health in any way, about pregnancy, about monitoring my cycles, about any of those things until I was in my late 30s and started looking into fertility treatments. It was like anything that went on with my body, if it was female related and I went to a doctor, they were like, that's just this. That's nothing to worry about. You don't have to stress about. And it was like this sort of like, just let's not talk about it kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And it is such an important thing. When I started fertility treatments, the first thing they ask you is like, what is your cycle like? How often are you, getting it? What is going on? And like, how often are you doing all of these things that go along with that? But like, I wasn't monitoring my temperature. I wasn't monitoring when I was ovulating. And you need to know those things to go through fertility treatment. So they teach you how to do it. But like, to be someone in your 30s and start to get that education was very frustrating because if I had known to do that my whole adult life, I would have. And I wouldn't have had, as you said, sort of those stressful moments of, oh my God, do I need to be worried right now? Only to 3 days later realize you don't have to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And that sort of like proactive versus reactive piece is really important too. It's like, with the price point of existing products, you're not really going to go ahead and buy ovulation tests necessarily to like explore your cycle before you're at the stage where you might want to be trying to conceive, for example. It's like, you're going to go and buy 9 tests for $60 just to try it out. It's like, that's not reasonable. Or a pregnancy test, like to keep on hand. It's like, nobody's doing that when they're $20. And so that was a really big piece for me, was like, I now have an IUD, and it's like, I know statistically I'm not going to get pregnant, but like, now I don't get my period, so I'm quite nervous.
Right.
And so being able to keep these on hand and just use them whenever you want, oh, my boobs are sort of sore, and I'm 3 days late or whatever it may be. It's like, you don't have to rush to the store and have that anxious purchasing experience. You can just sort of put your mind at ease. And that was a huge part of like offering, packs of 10 pregnancy tests or 4, whatever. Just really making it more proactive than reactive to remove that kind of anxiety.
Yes. And I love this because you do offer different sizes for people. If they're looking to just sort of test it out, see how it's working, whether or not it's something for them, they can get a smaller package versus a bigger package. If people are looking to actively prevent pregnancy, which a lot of people my age are now doing, I am currently in the basement of friends of mine who have 3 children, and they ended up with twins, even though they weren't aiming for twins. And they're like, we're so done. We're so done at this point.
Yeah.
If you're someone who's actively trying to prevent, this is a great way to be able to monitor that and be able to try and do all of the things you need to do so. And there are so many women now that are holding off on getting pregnant until later in life, or that are actively trying not to get pregnant because they've made the decision not to. And you have a video, I think it was on TikTok that I saw it, where you talk about how frustrating it was and how hard it was for you guys to get into Shoppers Drug Mart because so many men at the table consistently told you nobody's going to buy multiples of these. And the first thing that I thought was, oh my God, this is like the frustration that women have had in the medical system for decades. You're not actually listening to us and paying attention to how we're going about life now. As we get older, as we hold off on pregnancy, as we make the decision not to, these are things we want to be aware of. And we want to be able to monitor our own health as women and track the things that are important to us. So how have you guys, because you are in Shoppers Drug Mart now, you are in places. I got an email this morning that says your male fertility test is now at Shoppers as well.
Yes. Yeah.
So how are you guys I don't want to say fighting because fighting isn't the right word, but how are you combating that sort of stereotype that your product is not needed in the world? Because again, we're facing one of those like, women aren't really interested in that because nobody's asking women what they want.
Yeah. Oh, it's fascinating. So I should start by saying, so our male fertility test is available at Shoppers, but they have not yet agreed to carry the other line of products. And we don't want to throw them under the bus, and it wasn't specifically them because there are quite a few retailers who are skeptical, but you absolutely hit it right on the nose. It's that there is for sure a piece there where depending on that lived experience of that person, they may or may not get it. And a lot of the time, female buyers immediately get it. The women are like, oh yeah, this makes so much sense. We're going to bring it in. For example, London Drugs, one of the first retailers we carried, they're, big in Western Canada. And the buyer, I think she actually went on mat leave shortly thereafter, but she was immediately, she understood. She was like, yes, this makes sense. This needs to be on the shelves. This is a product that should exist. But then you have the other side of that, which is and again, I don't want to make it look sort of gender specific just because there are some women who are like, I've never had an issue with this. I don't have regular anxiety. I haven't had difficulties trying to conceive. So they might not understand the need. But generally speaking, a lot of the time it is men. And what it makes me think about, which makes me, sort of frustrated, is like, what other products haven't made it to the shelf? You know what I mean? Like, what other products have people come to the table and been like, this would improve my life, or this is necessary. There is a demand for this. And then the buyer is just totally out of touch. And the number of times I've wanted to just, and sometimes have told the buyers, like, can you ask your wife or your daughter or your friend or somebody, because it's like that really obvious switch. When someone gets it, they really get it. So it has been really challenging. What I will say is, like, I heard this great piece of advice, and I actually forget who gave it to me, which is terrible. But they said, when it comes to trying to get into wholesale, if they don't say no, it means maybe. And so like, in the sense that these buyers get emails all the time, they get calls, they get voicemails, people send samples. It's like, unless they go out straight up and tell you like, we are not interested in listing your product, you just have to keep trying, because they have these once a year cycles where they update their, like shelving planograms or whatever. Like that's, there's all these new terms that I had to learn too. I was like, I have no idea what any of this means.
Sure.
Yeah. But anyway, so yeah, if you keep persisting and then eventually it's the time of year where they're updating their shelves, they might consider. But for us, really, I think what helped was this sort of like demand driven pull, is like these TikToks. I mean, I don't want to call it like grassroots, but it kind of is. It's like people saying, we want to see this product on shelves.
Right.
Like, this is valuable to me. I kind of liken it to a diva cup in a way, where like initially I'm trying to put myself into like that founder's shoes. She's going to the drugstore and she's like, I want to have this, you buy it once and now the person's not coming back to the pharmacy every month for their tampons.
Right.
And if you're the buyer, that's like a nightmare, right? You're just thinking like, I don't want to bring this in.
Sure.
And it's similar with a 10-pack, even though, we know that the use case is different. It means you can test more often. And, it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to buy fewer tests. But in the buyer's eyes, they see, oh, you're going to offer a 10-pack. Well, we're never going to see this customer again. But right now, the person who's trying to conceive, they're in our aisle every month, spending 45, $50 every month.
Right.
And so they're really worried about the dollars and cents. And so, yeah, it's really, really important to us that the community, asks their local pharmacists, engages with us, supports us on social media, so that they see that there is this demand, there is this movement, and that it's not just a fad, that this is like a real need that we're meeting.
I love this. And I love that you bring up sort of the movement online, because that's how I found you. I had no idea your company even existed, which is hilarious to me in the wrong way, because I spent years going through fertility, and I have friends who spent years going through fertility, and nobody knew you existed. And I found you on TikTok and I was like sending it to everybody I knew. And I was like, and it's Canadian. Like, you never find a company like this that's Canadian, right? It's so hard to find this sort of, and I was just blown away. And I was like, if it hadn't been for social media, if it hadn't been for that sort of grassroots social media pull, I never would have found you. You wouldn't have appeared on my For You page, right?
Yeah.
And it's just such an amazing thing. And I wonder if, because you guys started really on social media to get that push, if you have found since COVID, because things have shifted so much to online because of COVID, if you guys have seen even more growth because of all of that.
It's a great question. So when I decided to quit my job and start this business, it was pre-COVID. And so everything was in the works, and we were going to launch. I don't know why I don't remember the dates, because
don't even worry about
so important at the time, but it was like some month, and then COVID happened, and then we had to delay several months because, our manufacturers, they're making COVID tests, and it's like, you can't argue with that. Global, so you're just kind of like, sure, we're going to make this out. And at first, it seemed very scary because, I had put all my eggs basically in this basket and wasn't sure when we were going to be able to launch. But as you mentioned, I think it actually helped us, because we ended up launching in the middle of the pandemic, and people were becoming more comfortable purchasing, things they would otherwise buy at the pharmacy online. And so that immediate traction of just being able to like run a few paid ads on Facebook or whatever and get a few people buying was like really, really powerful. But I don't know if we would have had the same sort of response had we launched, pre-pandemic or, that kind of thing. And we haven't been able, since we're so new, it's been difficult for us to measure kind of like year over year how it changes sort of post and during. But I do think it helped us a lot initially.
That's amazing. And you bring up sort of a great part about starting a business, just in general. So many people go to start a business and they put all of their eggs in that basket because they're so gung-ho and they're ready for this. And then something scary like the pandemic happens and you have a moment of panic. So I do want to ask you, like, how did you guys not, I'm sure you had a minor sort of moment of panic and freak out of yourselves, but you had the ability. You could have just said, you know what, pandemic, I'm walking away. We can't do this. You pushed through. How did you manage to do that? Because that's probably the scariest time to start a business.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, The first was that I had kind of like quit my job. So part of me was like, you are committed to this. You can't, like, this is it. Like, you're going to wait this storm out no matter what it takes. And I will say I'm very privileged to have a partner who was able to support me through some financially uncertain times, pre-revenue, which is definitely not a small, sort of, I don't know what you want to call it, but a piece of this, like a leg up, if you will, because taking risks is such a privilege. And that exact, those months when we were all delayed, it felt like very stressful, but at least, I was eating 3 meals a day kind of thing.
Right.
So what we ended up doing is we focused a lot of our attention on collecting email addresses and running ads to see like what landed very, very cheaply, like sort of $5 a day on Facebook,
Sure.
landing page, collect an email address, sort of, and just kind of engaging in that way. And we used it more as like a marketing testing time period. As much as it was kind of scary, I think it actually helped us when we did go to launch, because we knew which ads were resonating, and we had some that were kind of a weird image. So one example, we had this like red melting popsicle, and it performed so well, but people hated the ad. They would be like, why is this a pregnancy test commercial? It looks like a period, but like, which is totally understandable, right? Like if you're going through fertility treatment and, it's devastating, as to get your period. And so it was very interesting, right? Like trying to get that piece right is like, what are people going to react to? But also learning about that TTC, that trying to conceive community, was so important, because they are the sort of lifeblood of our sort of foundational customers that are, they're supporting us, who understand it, who see the value. And when we started the business, that wasn't, I was just somebody who didn't want to get pregnant. Right. And so I was like, I want to have these on hand because I like to, know when I want to know,
Right.
But not understanding the other side of it, which is so, as complex, just devastating, so many ups and downs. It's one of the hardest journeys, just engaging with this community has given me so much perspective. And I've learned just so much. And so really those 3 months when we were delayed, it was understanding, appreciating, trying to formulate a brand that was going to create messaging that was understanding of what these consumers are going through, just how delicate and, not delicate, but you know what I mean? Like your words really matter.
Yes.
You have to choose them wisely, and what you say matters, because this is often a journey that people are experiencing alone, and it's very isolating, and it's that secret battle that, the last thing they want to hear is the company who's here saying, oh yeah, I don't want to be pregnant, when they are, feeling the exact opposite. So I will say, I know you didn't ask, but one of our hardest challenges as a company is like, we want to be there for whatever you want to use our products for. We are not here to judge. That's why we don't have babies on the boxes. We try and keep things pretty neutral. We try and be inclusive with our languaging. It's like, what you use our products for is none of our business. But we need to be understanding of that journey that's going on for, most of the people that are, recurring customers, right?
Which is so important. And part of the reason why I sort of love your company, because there is such a vast array of people who can utilize your products for so many different reasons.
Totally.
And you're not specifically saying, we are giving you this because we think you're 35 and you should be pregnant. You are giving people the ability to have a little bit more freedom in their life and make the choices that are best for them given their circumstances, without judgment, without any kind of push in one direction or the other, which is why I think it's so amazing. And to be honest, fertility treatments are not cheap. Even as a Canadian, for all of the Americans listening, we may have free healthcare, but fertility treatments are not free here in Canada. And so it can be an expensive process, even just learning how to monitor your cycle, even just checking as you guys have a male fertility test. Like those things cost a lot of money, and it excludes such a large population of people who can't afford to go through those things.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important that people know there is something out there that might be within their price range to be able to sort of start that process themselves, whatever that process is for them. So it's one of the reasons why I love your company. And I wonder, because you guys are still sort of in this new stage, you're still growing, what is your biggest hope for the company in the next couple of years?
In the next couple of years, our focus is really on getting into all the retailers, because at the end of the day, there's only so many people, especially in Canada, our country is very big, who are going to wait in the mail to receive a pregnancy test.
Sure.
It's not to say people won't, and shipping is getting faster. We're working on that, but it's quite expensive. And so just to sort of like meet people where they are at that moment, where they're, in the store and they're going to grab some tests. That's a really big focus for us. We are going to expand our products. And I can't quite talk about what that looks like just
We'll
yet.
have you back when you do.
Awesome. That sounds great. But it is, again, in that sort of reproductive care space. But when I think, you didn't ask, but like when I think the 10-year picture, I'm very, I like to dream. And sometimes I go on a little bit of a tangent when I try to describe this, but I like to call it the sort of feminist empire, because right now, the business is technically a for-profit business. We do a lot of, donations. We have a return donations program. We have lots of, I don't know what you call it, like, not philanthropic, but we have some like do good social sort of impact built into the fibers of the business. It was one of the core things that we thought, if we're going to build a business, it has to do more than just sell a thing.
Sure.
So there's that component, but at the end of the day, it's still a for-profit business, and I would love for it to have a much bigger impact. So when I think about feminist empire, and I say with bunny ears because it's got to have a better name than that, because that always rubs people the wrong way.
Sure.
But it's like a co-op where everybody who engages with the business is an owner of the business. And it sells everything for every stage throughout a reproductive life and beyond. And you are getting paid effectively to buy your tampons, your birth control, your condoms, whatever it is, from, your first period to your last day of menopause, and potentially beyond. But the idea being that we've never had a business that is owned by women for women, and the things that you need to be comfortable every day of your life are things you have to pay for out of pocket. And so why isn't there a way to be compensated in some way for that, in some small way, right? Like imagine if it was in your best interest to purchase from one company because you got a check at the end of the year, because you are an owner of this business. So when this business succeeds, you succeed, and your voice matters, and your input on product development matters. And it doesn't matter if it's not on shelves, because you are the person developing this with a group of women that are really driven towards the same goal of simplifying having ovaries. Like that's kind of like I haven't polished the pitch, but
I love it.
It's like, I just wish there was a way for the first time where it paid to have ovaries. Like you know what I mean?
Yes.
So, yeah.
And I love this idea because there are so many different stages that we go through as women throughout the cycle of our life. Doesn't matter what age you are when you get your first period. All the way through menopause and after, as you said, your body changes and you need different things to be able to live comfortably and function comfortably and continue to have the life you want, whether that means, having a sexually active life or not, depending on your circumstances and your personal preference. But you still require things in order for that to happen. So I love the idea of this, and I love how passionate you are about it. People can't physically see your face, but I am telling you, it comes across, and I cannot wait. I will 100% jump on board whenever you get there, because I love this idea so much. But I do want to be respectful of your time, because time is almost out. And I will tell everyone who's listening, you are very generous and are willing to give the Chasing Happiness community a wonderful
Yes.
code so that they can order from your company, which I will include in the show notes for this episode, as well as all of the links for them to find your website and you guys on social media and find all the TikToks and all the things because I'm so in love. But before I let you go, I typically end with a few questions.
Awesome.
And honestly, there's only a couple that I want to ask you out of the list that I typically go through. And the first one is, because you've gone through this process recently of creating a business and building something from scratch, especially during a pandemic, at this point, if you could go back a couple of years, would you change any of it? Or are you in the position where you think, you know what, everything kind of unfolded the way it should?
Is that specific to the business or just like in life?
In life, I'll take in life too. Life lessons are always a wonderful thing.
I think I would tell my younger self to just not engage with social media as much. Like not to care at all. Like I'm only just now realizing that none of that fucking matters. Sorry.
No, it's totally fine.
Yeah, and it's taking me a long time because obviously there are really good parts of it. Like I'm not dismissing it all. And like you said, like this business wouldn't have been discovered on TikTok. So that's the irony, really. But like just personally, like when I compare my lives to others, it does not make me happier. And when I stop doing that, my life gets better. And I wish I had known that earlier. Even though it's like, doctors will tell you, but then it's different between like deleting the app and,
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, and it's such a big deal, like I'm 42. So I grew up without the internet and without social media.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know what that life looks like. But being able to, for example, hop on Facebook and reconnect with somebody who you haven't talked to in 15 years, 20
Right.
years. And it's like, oh my God, how are you? What is life like? I wouldn't have just run into you at the grocery store because we live in different places in the country or in the world, maybe, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there are absolutely benefits, but 100%, 100%.
Yeah.
There is a lot of downside, especially if you're someone who has notifications turned on, which I talk about a lot on this podcast, because there is something that actually physically happens within your brain when those notifications come in and you become addicted to that ting
Totally.
or the notification sound or your watch beeping or whatever it happens to be, right?
Right.
And it is so much more soothing to your soul to not have that added stress.
Yeah.
So I 100% get it. And I love that answer for everyone listening.
I would say like the distinction I like to make is like, am I using it as a tool or is it a distraction / entertainment? Like if it's a tool, like reconnecting with an old friend, or is this tool, like I need to get directions somewhere because I'm terrible with directions.
Sure.
It's like, that's very useful. But the minute I'm just like using it to soothe myself in moments of whatever, when I could be focusing on nature or like people around me, like that is where, like I wish I had just been able to make that distinction earlier.
Oh my God, I love that. That's so awesome. Okay, the last question that I'm going to ask you is, what does happiness mean to you?
Happiness is for me the freedom to take risks. And that doesn't necessarily just mean, in business or career or whatever, or in, it could be in like emotional risks with people around you that you trust them enough that you can tell them really deep, dark secrets and that they won't judge you.
Sure.
All that kind of stuff. Yeah. I think like the freedom to take risks is for me what happens.
I love that answer. And it is kind of an amazing thing, right? To have the privilege of feeling that safe with another human being, regardless of what the circumstance is. It's such a big deal. So I love that. And I love that that was your answer. And honestly, I could probably talk to you all afternoon. So I 100% am happy to have you back, especially when you launch new products, because I think for me personally, I won't speak on behalf of everyone listening, but for me personally, I'm at the stage in my life where it is really important for me to have a handle on my health. It's an important thing for me to know where I am physically, as well as what that's going to look like as I age and get older and all of those things. And this is a big part of a woman's health overall. So I am so appreciative for you and this company and everyone who has helped you get here, because starting your own business is a big deal and it's stressful and it's a lot of work and you don't do it by yourself. Even if you launch a company by yourself, it is never fully done alone. So I appreciate your time today. I appreciate you, especially, being on a different coast than I am in this wonderful country of ours, getting up so that we could do this today. Is there anything else you want to say before I let you go today?
Uh, no, I've really enjoyed this conversation. I would absolutely love to come back and chat anytime. Um, yeah, this is such a wonderful podcast. I think it's great that you're, you know, pulling out the little, like, this world is so messy, right? Like, I feel like people can't really see my hand gestures, but I'm a great hand gesture. Yeah. But this world has so much, bad news. And I love that your podcast is focused on the good, because there is a lot of good, and I think more people are more similar than they are different. Yes. And I love that your podcast really highlights that.
Yeah. Thank you. And that really is the goal, right? Like, we all struggle. Mm-hmm. We are all on this messy ocean. We're just in very different boats. And sometimes that means some people have it easier and some people don't, but there is always something somewhere that you can learn from someone else, regardless of the circumstance. And so I love that I get to have conversations with people like yourself, and I get to talk about, how we create these lives that are really meaningful to us and then also impact other people. Because I think we as humans strive for that. And we've gotten sort of focused on this, like, work 9 to 5, do this thing, buy this house, buy this car. And Yes. We've forgotten the other aspect of, like, what we need intrinsically as humans to feel whole. Totally. So that's ultimately one of the reasons why I do this. So thank you. I appreciate that.
That's great.
And for everyone who is listening, again, I will, of course, post in the show notes all the links. I will post the discount code. I will post all of the fun stuff so you can join the mailing list. You can get involved. You can do all those things. And I will definitely have Jackie back. So if you guys have questions for her, or you want something specifically for us to talk about on the next time that I have her on, please go ahead and email me or reach out. We are happy to have a conversation about whatever it is, because I think we also need to talk far more about women's health issues in general. And this is one of those things that nobody talks about. So thank you all for listening. I appreciate you so much. I hope you guys are all having an amazing week, and we will chat with you next week. Bye for now.